happening? This is Buying Boring but Beautiful Businesses. And this is Colin Andrews Egbert. And today I'm with somebody very special named Bimby Phillips. He is across the pond in the United Kingdom, and he has gone from being a very successful consultant, consulting with some of the top companies in the UK, and decided to focus both on deals in the UK, but also a majority in the US of these boring businesses. And so I wanted to jump on, ask him some questions from his perspective as far as how he went and why he decided to go from high level consulting and helping businesses, really take it to multi millions and all of the work that you did there to focusing more on this niche of boring businesses. So Bimby, welcome. And
Yes,
it's great to have you here. So yeah, if you could, let's jump right in. What made you decide, and give it a little bit of your background, but what made you decide to kind of say, hey, you know what, I got the experience with consulting with in the UK, but you decided to go this route. Talk to us a little bit more about that.
Hi, Colin. Thanks for having me. And yeah, I think it's been an exciting period, really, doing this for corporates. I've worked with over 20 corporates in the last 15 years, both in the US and in the UK. And I think it got to an extent where myself and a few other people that would come together to, put this partnership together to help the smaller businesses that don't have the type of resources that we offer to the corporate guys, right? So 9 out of 10 businesses put out for sale do not sell, only in the SME market, only because they are not prepared or positioned to sell, right? So they don't have this expertise in terms of preparing them for sale. So we decided, take on the opportunity to fill in that gap, to work with our partners to prepare these businesses for sale and ensure that they are one of the 10 businesses that do sell. So we focus now on SMEs and SMBs, between 1 to 15 million in revenue is what we focus on. And I think a personal story it comes from my dad as well. My dad was one of a business owner, those business owners that wanted to sell his business at some point but didn't know how, which is understandable because 99% of people who are motivated to sell are, either selling as a result of retirement or duress or divorce or something. So they don't have, at that point in time, they don't have the knowledge that is required to position them for sale. So when they partner with people like us, we aren't just buyers of businesses. We actually come in to put some skin in the game to help prepare them as well and position them so that when we do the acquisition, it's all smooth sailing.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate sharing that. And if you could go in a little bit, because as you know, what we are doing, one of the main things that we focus on is bringing minority equity investors, folks that are interested in purchasing a business at one point and leading the charge, so to say. But first they want to, get their hands in, get a front row seat, get some excellent cash flow, but they're not ready to take on the full part of actually doing a whole business by themselves. So can you kind of share a little bit more about what do you think that makes these $1 to $15 million businesses so attractive for a minority equity investor?
So I think there's stats out there that says only about 10% investors play within this market. It's a huge market, but lack investment, right? So there's a huge opportunity. You have deal makers like people like myself who review deals on a daily basis, but we need that funding, right? There's that opportunity, there's that gap there when it comes to funding. You have, thank God for the likes of the SBA. It's really opened the market for people who want to play in that game, who can leverage the SBA and then put in a capital that they can easily afford into that business acquisition without the pain or hassle of, reviewing the deals themselves. So we would source the deal, we would review the deals, we would do our, level one analysis of if something we want to go ahead with or not. Before if it's a yes, we then go into we make the heads of terms or LOI offer. Then we go to the due diligence where we then go in depth, and that can be a very costly process, right? Where most times it can cost you between 20 to 60 grand or even more if you're able to manage that process properly. And then before it now gets to the final stage where funding comes in before the acquisition takes place. So I think your model is quite interesting because they skip all that. They don't have to source. They don't have to do the negotiation. They don't have to deal with the whole, we want to call it, the old crap that we all go through every day. The sellers are motivated. They are not motivated. You're dealing with the broker. The numbers are wrong. The numbers they are doctored in a way that they want to catch you off guard. You don't have to go through all that, right? You skip all that. You skip the due diligence phase. You skip how expensive the due diligence phase is, which is almost sometimes the same amount that you would have invested as your skin in the game to get the money from the banks anyway. And then that doesn't mean it's going to be successful. So I tell people at the end of the due diligence, after spending all that money, it might come up with identifying a skeleton in the cupboard. You wouldn't say, because we spend the amount, we need to buy. No, they've done their job, right? They've identified the issues. So no, you actually don't have to buy. So your model really works for people who are interested in just investing, because they're coming in when all those crap has been done, when all those deals have been validated, and they are just the last full stop, a small last full stop to put the full stop in and make that acquisition happen. So I think it's really important, I think, for everyone. And I think for people who are interested in that model, it saves them a whole lot of pain and headache.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Bimby. And if you can you kind of share a little bit about when you see a deal that's just a red flag? As you mentioned, like, you're constantly looking at deals. Most of the deals do not pass our due diligence analysis. And so can you kind of share a little bit more about, what are some of the red flags that you see that tell us that, nope, this is not a deal. This is going to be put in the no-go column, as opposed to something that's interesting that we want to focus down on more?
Yeah, how many minutes do I have to explain that? Because I can go all day with that. So I think the first thing is to be fair on sellers. The reason why 9 out of 10 business don't sell is because this is the first time that 99% of all sellers are selling the first time in their life, right? So they don't know what they need to put together to ensure that their business is positioned properly. One big thing I see all the time is how their financials are prepared. Right now, they're business owners. They have 100% control over their financials. However, they've prepared it the way they want to prepare it. Some could have prepared it to be in line with their lifestyle. Some prepared it to be in line with tax savings and so on, right? Now, the thing about acquisition is you only value what you can see in terms of the data, what was presented in your tax returns, the data presented. And some sellers feel like the reality is different from that, and they want you to value based on the reality, on their reality. But our reality is what you have presented financially. So you see a lot of deal being X'd out because there's a big mismatch between what the reality has been said it is by the seller versus what's on paper, which you can't really, it gets everyone nervous, right? So nobody just wants to touch that. Number two, I think another big reason I see is the fact that you have sellers intertwined with their business, and it's very hard to disconnect them, and which is fine, because most sellers started their business and built their business on relationship, credibility. They brought these customers in. But at the end of the day, when you're selling the business, you are selling a different entity. You're not selling you, right? So if you don't have documentations on contracts between your customers, your suppliers, and things like that, then what are we really buying, right? Meaning you actually can't leave that business because you are the business. Some sellers have their face as the brand of the business. So meaning that the customers don't want to talk to anybody else. They just want to talk to the person who is selling. And once they hear selling, everybody panics, right? They want to go to somebody else. So these are lots of things that we see on a daily basis. And other things, right? The business doesn't have processes in place. They don't have a good management team to run the business for people like us who are not owner operators, and we're owner investors, and so on. So there are quite a lot of red flags that we see. I think we're just looking at a deal not too long ago, and we could see the financials really jumping up and down, and we can see that the expenses is basically putting the business at a loss from the start. But then when you look at the add backs, you can see that the consultancy fee that they're adding back is way more than, and we probably would have gotten the business back in line. But then it's varied. It's like 1 million this year, 200,000 next year. It's just a lot going on. And if the owners or the sellers can't articulate why this is the case, then it's a red flag, really. But if they can and it makes sense, then we know how to work around that.
Got it. Excellent. And Bimby, we're big believers in that doing this it's a true team sport. Can you kind of share a little bit more why you believe it's so important to have folks that, they specialize in a certain area or they bring one part to the table when it comes to the deal, as opposed to trying to do it all by yourself?
Yeah, so my firm is called Bimbi, Phillips and Partners for that reason, because you can never do it alone. And I think somebody asked me the same question about 2 days ago, and I'm like, literally, that's why. It's a team effort from the start to the end, right? There are people who are specialists at sourcing deals, right? You can't take it from there. And there are people who are specialists at negotiating those deals, right? I think one of my superpowers falls right into negotiation and growth, right? That's my superpower. So I have people that work with me that want to say, look, I need ideas on how to ensure that I can put good KPIs or business plans together to see how we can grow this business. That's my superpower. And then there's some people who are funding, and I think that's one of your superpower, right? You can put the dots together to ensure that the funds are generated in order to close the deals. And there are people that are great at the individual due diligence process. As somebody that I work with really well, that he's great when it comes to even SOPs, right? And documentation and things like that, in going into the business as a consultant and getting the right information out in order not to trigger fear that the business is being sold and things like that. So it's a team effort. And not just a team effort, it has to be a team effort with people that have a high integrity and high credibility with each other, because one simple mistake would affect the entire team end to end, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like a relay, right? You're passing to the next person, but the first 3 laps you might have been the best, but the person on the last lap might fuck it up for everyone else in the entire team. Or the person in the first lap started so awful that it made the work an extra effort for the other 3. So it's not just teamwork, it's credibility, it's integrity, it's ensuring that the right people, the people you are working with, you trust them to be able to deliver. And because this entire process is full of challenges, is to make sure that you trust them enough to be able to navigate those challenges.
Absolutely. No, very well said. One of the big changes that we saw, and one of the reasons why we came up with this matchmaking service, is because of SBA and the changes that that just happened. You're constantly talking to folks that are looking at buying businesses, and this was a huge blow. And if you can you kind of share a little bit about what kind of the reaction was as far as the people freaking out and why we believe that this is such a great time, because a lot of those buyers, a lot of those potential folks that were interested in buying from these retiring business owners, they don't have, they're gone. They don't have the equity or they don't have the experience, and SBA has really tightened up on them for that. So can you kind of share a little bit more about why we believe that this is such a great time to get started, because it really did take out a lot of the potential buyers from the marketplace?
Yeah, so like every challenge comes with opportunity, and I think this is the great opportunity that came with that challenge, right? Those challenges are still there, right? So even for international investors not being able to play in the deal anymore if they're going via SBA, etc. But this has really opened it up. This the model you're bringing to the market. It's just fantastic. You can then have individuals, investors who can come in and just play that path, right? That particular path that you've created for them. So I think it's timely. It's an incredible, it comes, I think someone did say that, especially when opportunity comes as a result of government decisions, take advantage of it ASAP before they probably change it again.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely. That's
So
totally our
I
belief.
think this is the time to take advantage of it before it probably changes again. And we know the government always changes rules all the time.
Yep. Well said. Excellent. Well, Bimby, thank you very much for sharing some of your background, your experience, and also your perspective with this. You have been an awesome part of our team, and we look forward to doing a lot of deals with you, as well as also for hopefully some of the folks that are listening to this as well. So until next time, we'll talk to you later. Take care.
Thanks for inviting me.